everyone to the Analyst desk for a game with everything on the line between Excel and Schalke 04. Myself, Vedius, and LS will guide you into this game, but first the stakes are very simple. The winner of this game will be our final team in the spring playoffs, joining Fnatic and SK, who are locked after Vitality's win. The loser of Schalke versus Excel is eliminated from playoffs contention, so regardless of the Vitality win, of course the teams went into this and they had to win no matter what. So let's go down the line, starting for Schalke. A win here would send them to the playoffs once again after another last-minute comeback. LS, they lost 7 games in a row, and now they've won 3 in a row. What has changed?
I mean, I feel like they were having a really rough stride, a very long series of problems, and their drafts were sort of all over the place. They were going with a lot of deviations and whatnot, and some of their more recent wins, I don't know if it's the desperation they're buckling with and just, you know, getting into the stride of things, but it's now or never for them, and maybe they're just performing under pressure.
I do think that individuals are definitely stepping up for me. I talked about it at the beginning of the day, but I feel like BrokenBlade and Limit in particular are really having standout performances. And I think that Limit in particular is someone that I saw a lot of strength from during the regular season at times. But in this week in particular, I think he has really popped off.
That bot lane has been a factor for them when things have been going well, but also when they've been going badly. So it's good to see that they found a new form. I also want to talk about the jungle. LS, I know there's been some criticism levied towards Gilius at certain times in this season. Has he reinvented himself in this last couple of games?
I think he's managed to find a lot of good spots. I think that in some of the games, obviously, the team compositions were also really helping him out in general. Like in the game against Vitality, things were obviously fantastic for him. The comps were designed, right? He had a lot of support for himself in that game. And I think that as long as the laners are playing stable, Gilius is going to be a high-end jungler inside of the league. When he's having to salvage the lane states or try to fix them, that's where you can get the high variance stuff. But so far that hasn't been happening in their last few games.
Yeah, we'll see if he can show up today. Usually, you know, with the streaky performances of Schalke and the miracle run, he showed up as well. And while Schalke have had the success in these situations before, Excel have time and time again been on the cusp of playoffs only to watch it slip away, and they find themselves exactly in that position again. But Vedius, things are a bit different because Excel beat G2 and they beat Rogue, and they are on form and in the best position they have ever been in to get to playoffs.
It's all in their own hands. They can only blame themselves if they do not qualify this time around, and I think they're in a position where right now they found a formula. We talk about it a lot on broadcast. We talk about a team's identity, and I think that unless you're a top team who can play every single style, you need to have your specific players that can clutch up. You need a certain lane to be able to play around. You need to be able to potentially find your fit into the meta, and right now I feel that Excel are doing just that. They're putting Patrik in a position to carry. They found more champions for Czekolad to actually have impact on, and they're just going for more of a scaling approach. They're waiting for team fights, and they're not trying to snowball the game too hard in the other game.
And last, when it comes to drafting, as we will be doing a draft together here on the desk, what do you want to see from Excel? We talk about that identity as we see some staying alive from Czekolad. Yes.
Chocolate is, I mean, he's always on point, honestly. Yeah, it's quite good.
This is Excel's draft versus Rogue, by the way, if you wanted to vamp off that.
Yeah, I mean, Excel, I mean, in their draft Rogue, you have the Silas, which, I mean, had some pretty good ultimates available to him. And I mean, I think that against Rogue were being a little bit uncharacteristic with their gameplay, but like Vedius was already saying, they found the style that works well for them. And it was the style that they had at the beginning of the split, right? They understood that we're not going to mechanically outmuscle people. We're going to rely on team compositions. It's interesting, Excel doesn't always necessarily hemorrhage across the board. Sometimes they're actually win their lanes, or they even go even. They find winning matchups while having that comp insurance, and they've gone back to this now. And having it available to them, if they bring it out again here today, I think they're heavily favored against Schalke. Yeah,
I very much agree. I think that the Xayah pick in particular for Patrik gives him a lot of agency in lane, and it allows him and Tori to have a little bit more impact, while also still having scaling towards the late game with a slightly weaker side top, and then more of a scaling jungler. So it's definitely a very straightforward composition, easy to execute, and as Alice was saying, I think that if they can keep getting comps like this, Excel are in a good position.
Yes, well, that's all that they should do and the way that they should play. But we see, or we've seen rather in the first game, that that's not always how it plays out. Misfits just dropped the ball, and neither of these teams could. It all comes down to this for Schalke and Excel. So let's leave it to our casters.
Thank you very much, Sjokz. We are here for the second game of the day. The most important game of the day now. Schalke win, they're in. Excel win, they're in.
That's the other team.
Excel, for the first time in their 3-year history in the LEC, would make it to playoffs. They would break the 7th place curse.
And the amazing thing is, if you look at like last summer, right? Like Excel, it wasn't all in their hands, right? And then Schalke went sprinting past them at the very end. So now it is in Excel's hands. They just need one more win. And both of these teams were on such like a downward spiral before week 8, you know, losing 6-7 games in a row. Yep. But then Schalke have picked up 3 wins in a row. Excel have taken down G2 and Rogue yesterday and the day before, to the shock and the surprise of literally everyone everywhere. And now it all comes down to this. Schalke versus Excel, winner is into the playoffs.
Every game counts. And into the draft we go. So, Excel want scaling. That is what I learned from the analyst desk. That's what all the smart people told me. We'll see if they are able to pick it up. Schalke have, over the last week or so, played through BrokenBlade in the top lane, given him carries, allowed him to be the key focus, the focal point for that team. With the Twisted Fate band, with the Orianna band, nothing too surprising as of yet.
Yeah, BrokenBlade has been super flexible for Schalke up on the top side. And we also have seen the rest of Schalke go for a more scaling approach. We've seen the Rise in the mid lane from Abbedagge, even the Seraphine in the bot lane next to an Alistar as well. So the question is, are Schalke going to try and break Excel in the early game? Excel's early game has been the worst of any team in the LEC this split, but their scaling, their drafts, their playstyle has always given them strength when it comes to the later team fights. Or do Schalke decide instead to match the scaling and go head-to-head in those later 5v5s?
First time in a while we've seen a Thresh on Summoner's Rift, very often banned out, counters out the Rel as well, of course, because the Flay can be used against the knockup, and it counters out Alistar a bit as well. Headbutt Pulverize can be stopped. However, Limit has been very good on the Alistar over the last few days. Yeah, now you would expect an Aphelios for Patrik next to the Thresh, the preferred combination there. And in the final game of the regular season, no better champion, I feel like no better pairing for Patrik to be on the star player for Excel. We'll see if they go for it as their third pick, because for now, it will be that early Sion. I think looking at the Kryze versus BrokenBlade matchup in the top side, not too surprising to see the Sion, very powerful tank, one of the more preferred tanks in the top side, come out early on in this draft. Yeah, as you say, the Aphelios makes the most sense alongside Thresh. Kryze has been playing a lot of Sion recently, and it's such a good tank, it's such a good engage tool. There is the Aphelios, so good job there, although I will say Thresh Aphelios is something most people
That's
can
the
work
easy
out
one.
is going to happen.
That's the easy one. Now, bot lane can get a little bit spicy early on. Of course, you know, Jhin has some CC to combo off the All-Star very, very well. So Gilius can decide to go for an early ganking champion that can slam the bot lane, but instead, it's going to be the Karthus. Okay. So assuming jungle Karthus here for Gilius, and this is an idea that I think can work very well against Excel. If you try to match Excel in the scaling department, because you know this team does not challenge you in the first 15 minutes of play. They are not a strong early game team, so Schalke could from here decide to go for more scaling picks that can carry them into the late game and then beat Excel at their own game.
Try and outscale.
Exactly.
Excel. It's a very interesting idea. I have seen Dan get some good counter jungling off from time to time. Their game against the Mad Lions, I remember Laure was very far behind before he managed to find a gank in the bottom lane, and Excel do still have their jungle pick available here. Yeah, the thing is, I don't really know if Excel want to go for something like the Nidalee, which I think we've seen as one of the champions that can get into the enemy jungle and, of course, you know, take away camps, threaten early on, because it's just, it's very difficult. I don't really feel like it fits Dan's playstyle. Usually, Dan, very much a full clear type of jungler. His lanes are going to take it easy. He also is just going to be speeding through the game, and if you can't rely on your other lanes to have priority, you
expect BrokenBlade to have a counter pick topside, it's very difficult then to decide, okay, well now I want to play the counter jungle style of map, so likely we just see him match with some sort of scaling pick himself.
Schalke now will probably look up towards their top lane. They already know that Kryze will be playing the Sion. BrokenBlade has been carrying a lot of their games. The Urgot, the Aatrox, 2 strong picks for him. And Ender, you said you wanted a little bit more scaling. Gangplank fits that bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gangplank gives the more team play, the more threat on a backline. A Fiora would be the side lane pressure, but I do generally prefer the GP. Right now, not only do Schalke have a lot of scaling and, you know, a good matchup for BrokenBlade topside, but they also have insane global presence too. The very long-range engage, the Jhin ultimate, Gangplank ultimate, the execute of the Karthus in there as well. They have a lot of great ways to say, hey, Patrik, I see you all the way over there trying to kite away from us. No, 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 we're slowing you down. We're trying to finish you off too. So these globals could be quite the threat for Excel now.
Excel will pick a safe mid laner for themselves. The Syndra does give you a bit of zone control, of course. Scatter of the Weak can dissuade the enemy from engaging, and now they are looking towards their jungler, we assume. Volibear, Warwick, I believe, are the normal hovers for Torre, so don't expect either of those to be going in the jungle. Dance, going to scale himself. Okay, Mundo.
Okay, so the Mundo does have a very fast clear, and it's very hard to find champions that can contest Karthus in terms of early game jungle clear, and I suppose a Mundo does fit that bill. What will also mean that, you know, Mundo of course loves to go for things like the Spirit Visage, these MR items that works nicely against the Karthus, and especially if there's a magic damage mid laner as well now.
No way.
For Schalke!
Okay.
It's mid lane Nocturne!
Is it actually mid lane?
So this is a combination. Karthus Nocturne is a combo that's being played a lot over in the LPL, and it's actually a combination that me and Vedi, when we duoed, we played all the time because you get mixed damage profiles, right? You have a Karthus, you have Nocturne AP, AD,
yeah, sure.
and then you also have double globals to kill anyone on the map. So at level 6, you run top lane. Well, probably not in this game. You run bot lane against Patrik. You absolutely camp the living hell out of that, man. Kevin, is it possible to get Vedius on the desk, please?
Yeah, come on. Oh, he's running. He's running. Here we are. Bring Vedius on. We've got a headset for you. Okay, Vedi. Before we're going to do some stakes, Vedi. Vedi, I want you to hold it. I want you to hold it, Vedi. Hold it. Okay, we're going to do some stakes first. This is the deciding game for playoffs. Excel, if they win, they are in for the first time in their 3-year history. Schalke, if they win, they are in. They could even get to 4th spot. This is the deciding game of the day. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, I'm going to take a step back. Vedi,
Hello there.
Let's do it.
All right, so I got to look at this, right? So, Nocturne mid lane. Probably the greatest pick in all of League of Legends. For those unfamiliar, Nocturne, very good.
Quick, before you go down this, just want to remind you how important this game is.
Oh, very important game.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll get to the stakes.
Okay.
Everyone knows. Winner of this qualifies for playoffs. Everyone knows that. Imagine if Schalke do it off the back of Nocturne mid. Okay, so Nocturne mid has already been rising in popularity across the world, especially in the LPL. Doinby, a very good Nocturne mid player. The reason for this is with the introduction of Stridebreaker. So basically, the problem with Nocturne, and his problem has always been, is that he's not really the best engaged champion because he's too squishy.
True.
But also, he's not that great. I mean, he can kill things like an assassin, but once he does, there's no way for him to get out.
Right.
So finding that middle ground has always been difficult. That's where Stridebreaker comes in, because it turns him into like a bruiser that has kill threat while also acting as an engage tool.
Yeah, and you know, if you put 3 different globals next to him as well, he's a tank and an assassin with the help of his friends. So I like the theory here, Vedius.
And so in the early game, what Nocturne's going to do is push, and this also gives him a lot of safety and security for the Karthus in the early laning phase. You'll notice that he is running Conqueror. Now, this is a big debate among many Nocturne players. Personally, I think Lethal Tempo is the superior rune because on your Q, you get additional attack damage, which you don't get to take as much value out of when you're running Conqueror, because Lethal Tempo, you just hit them all. Now, while there is an engage in the bot lane, no one's going to die. So I'm going to continue talking about Nocturne mid lane. Now, you will also notice that he is running the Doran Shield. You can flex this depending on what you want to do with itemization, but the primary thing about Nocturne is Stridebreaker into Sterix Gauge is going to act as an engage diving onto the backline when combined with a GP ultimate and the Karthus ultimate, the low mobility carries are going to struggle.
And I think it's fair to say at level 6, we need to see Abbedagge running towards bot lane, yes?
Quite right.
All right.
So, you've been informed on Nocturne. My producer is going to kick me off because I'm not supposed to cast this game. So have fun. Nocturne mid, very, very good. Have fun, gentlemen.
Okay, goodbye, Vedius. Nocturne.
See you, Vedi. Thank you so much.
The pro-level insight you expect from a Nocturne mid lane one trick for the last 10 years.
It's been way too long, let's be honest. Okay, so what's happening on the rest of the map? Well, Patrik and Torre have the push in the bottom lane, limiting Neon Force back just a little bit. In the top lane, Kryze is just trying to tank up against BrokenBlade, who has a wave pushing in. Mid lane, we have seen Abbedagge push in a couple of times with the Duskbringer, and then managed to walk his way into sort of the top side and the bottom side of the river.
Yeah, and we're going to see this again. It just looks like both sides of the map are going to be traded for the junglers in terms of Scuttlecraft. I have to draw your attention to the summoner spell choice of Gilius, because it's not a flash. It's an exhaust there on the Karthus, and usually you'd say, but don't you need the flash to like escape from abilities like, I don't know, a hook or a stun from a Syndra, but Gilius instead deciding that if Dan was to ever walk into his jungle, he would just lose. Because Karthus already deceptively strong duelist in the early game, able to spam out his Qs, and with an exhaust becomes near impossible. And you also have this idea of, well, if Schalke want to welcome Excel into them in a team fight, you know, kite back for, you know, your barrels, your Karthus.
And I'm going to interrupt because Dan went in, placed a ward. He knows the Gromp is coming back up, and he's trying to counter jungle. You can see as well, Torre has worked his way across it. Gilius is on a ward, and he's being forced away. The rest of it, Schalke's bottom lane is coming across.
Okay.
And they're actually looking for the route here onto limit.
I heard the hook or the hook sound, and it didn't connect, so this may not end up working. Looks like the bot lane will start resetting, and don't know if Excel can actually commit anything to this play. I actually think it's very smart for Schalke's bot side to reset here. I don't know if they're actually still in the vision of the ward that was placed in Tribrush, because if they weren't, then Excel could think they're still in the area. And obviously disrupt some ideas here from Excel, but Schalke effectively get a free reset in the bot side. BrokenBlade was also able to take a very early recall up top lane as well. And
Gilius doesn't lose a camp.
Yeah.
That's the important thing in the end. Able to keep both of his Gromp and his Wolves.
Yeah, I would also say that, like, looking at some, like, the itemization changes coming into the year, like, theoretically, like, Karthus should have been buffed. There were obviously, like, changes that went down during the preseason because these farming junglers were insane for just a little bit, but now he gets to build a mana item, which, of course, is great news for that Karthus as his first one. That hook was not going to connect, but Limit.
I've seen enough hooks that don't look like they're going to connect. I don't blame Limit for going for that flash.
That's valid. And now, actually, so you'll look at your minimap right now. Abbedagge just took a reset and TP'd back in the lane. Czekolad has no mana. And I think the theory behind this is Abbedagge is level 5 right now. Very close to that ultimate unlocking. So if he can force the TP out of Czekolad, it means that his roams cannot actually be followed really easily. And now BrokenBlade, he might just get a solo kill here.
Yeah.
Wow.
BrokenBlade, so I wonder if that was BrokenBlade kind of playing mind games a little bit, because it looked like what he did was stop moving with the S and then make it look like he was getting his parlay off, getting his parlay back off cooldown, and then the flash came out from Kryze.
Well, I think what happens there, right, is that BrokenBlade has flash Q coming up in like 1.5 seconds, so Kryze has to flash away
otherwise you just die.
Preemptively, right? And what BrokenBlade's doing is he's pressing S right outside of turret range, so he doesn't take any extra aggro because he knows with the flash he would be able to get in range anyways. But regardless, that will be a summoner spell advantage in the top side, a global now unlocked in both top and mid lane for both Schalke solo laners, and no TPs on the Excel solo laners. So this is a big window now where Schalke can attack. Gilius also, level 5, should be getting 6 quite soon. And the thing to keep in mind about this Karthus Nocturne combination is that Nocturne effectively gets to be the jungler. Like, Gilius doesn't have to take time out of his jungle clear to go and gank a lane. He can just press his R button while continuing to power farm through his camps, and if Dan ever shows up into a lane, that means that Gilius gets free reign to walk into his jungle and see exactly what he can claim for himself.
So what you're saying in this game is jungle diff is mid diff?
Yes.
Okay, we'll see if Abbedagge
Schalke have 2 junglers in this game.
See if Abbedagge can get into those side lanes. As you say, he has hit level 6, maybe waiting on Gilius to get get 6 of his own. He's in the Wolves, he's got Blue and Gromp left available to him and should hit 6 off those camps.
Yeah, so there are some timers that Schalke can look to play off of. Now 6 has come through from Gilius, but the blue buff just spawned on Excel's top side. Now because blue is top side and you know Czekolad's going to move over to that, this would be a window now where Abbedagge gets to full shove that mid wave and then walk down bot side, knowing that the enemy jungle and mid have a very high likelihood of being top side. Exactly when you see that blue buff on Czekolad, it means, hey, Dan was just up there, now let's move back bot.
And one important thing for how this gank plays out is the fact that Limit does not have the flash. Yes, he can Hex Flash, but his ability to flash Pulverize or Hex Flash Pulverize and go in, here comes the Paranoia, it's perfect, Ender, you predicted it, the Requiem, and Schalke's dreams perhaps are coming to a fore. Abbedagge gets the kill, Schalke 1-0 up.
That play, just textbook there from Schalke. And again, Gilius is doing Dragon while ganking bot lane. The beauty of this champion. You love to see it there from Schalke. And Excel's counterplay in that situation. Torre had to play so much deeper in the lane. He was effectively right next to Patrik, and that's not going to do anything. You need to get a huge max range lantern to allow him to continue to step up and farm and still have the option to get out. And even then, I don't know if it would have worked.
As soon as Limit comes in with the headbutt Pulverize, Torre should be backing off. He shouldn't be walking up trying to flay. Put your back off, maybe even flash lantern here, because watch this, like, Torre isn't expecting Abbedagge and the Karthus to come down, but really, as soon as this comes in, Torre should be getting the hell out of there. Yeah. Instead, he goes forward.
It's a very late flash backwards. Of course, he's trying to layer some CC, but with all these globals, you can see they weren't even all necessary. I think the Cannon Barrage was held onto in the top side of the map. Hey, Sjokz, hope you're doing great on the analyst desk, and hope you're doing better than Excel currently in this game, because that play was very predictable from Schalke. You knew exactly what was going to go. Okay, I can do this again. Spoom. All right, wait for a team fight. The sound should be coming back.
Oh wait, here
shortly.
We are. Shunk. Shunk. Shunk.
Okay, great work, great work.
Good stuff. Okay, so what I do like from Excel is they died in the bottom lane. They immediately swapped their AD carry support towards top, knowing that they can play for the Rift Tower out of that, and they have been able to pick that up. You can see actually Patrik not too far behind in gold to Neon, but look at that difference in the mid lane. 300 gold advantage already for Abbedagge, and that's only going to start stacking further and further the more times he can get this Paranoia off.
Yeah, and again, we're just looking for these ultimates to cycle back up now for Schalke. Now, this time they should be coming up at around the same time TPs will return, so Excel have a little bit more counterplay. Now, BrokenBlade does have his Cannon Barrage ready to go, and Gilius is trying to sneak into lane. There's a control ward right there, but I think Gilius' best move is to recall. You'll notice he has 2 camps available on his bot side jungle, so he will finish channeling that one for himself and just keep up this power farming.
And look at how much vision Schalke have in that bot side jungle. They know Dan is nowhere near that. They've got a control ward. They have another ward by where the Razorbeaks would spawn. They've got a control ward in the river. In fact, they've got 2. Like, if Dan is ever on this side of the map, they're going to know about it. And if he's not, they then know he's on the top side of the map, and it makes it so much easier to play around the enemy jungle's pathing.
Abbedagge just looking to interrupt a recall there from Czekolad. I kind of like the no sound every once. You know, there are legitimately pro players that play without sound.
Really?
True. I think Santorin
was
one that would play without sound. Yeah, it disturbs me because, like, Sion, for example, has a very large visual cue.
Corky package?
Corky package, sure. A lot of these different things can tell you what's going on. Now, Torre looking for a move around mid, but again, very hard to actually get this gank to work out. There's a flash on Abbedagge, and of course has that spell shield too. So if he just just good clicks, also dodges away from it.
There's a control.
And a minion.
I mean, yep. That's
Thumbs up.
Gonna stop it. Okay, so 10 minutes into the game, Schalke have the advantage. Reminders everyone at home, if Schalke win, they are into playoffs. If Excel win, they are into playoffs. Both teams are eliminated if they lose. And you can see Excel able to keep that gold within 1,000 or so, but we haven't seen the second ulti combo. We haven't seen the Requiem for a Paranoid Dream, or whatever we're going to call it, from Abbedagge and Gilius as of yet.
I'll think of a good one. I'll think of a good one on that. Maybe Sweet Dreams.
Sweet Dreams, yeah.
Sweet Dreams, because it's a Requiem, like you're singing a lullaby, but then it's also a nightmare, paranoia.
A Requiem sung specifically at certain times of the year?
Yeah, we'll think about it. Well, I'll let you brainstorm that while we continue to break down this game, because we are, again, at another point where Schalke can look to make a move. Now, last time it was off of the back of that blue buff spawn. Of course, that will be coming up shortly. And now both junglers are on the bot side, but Excel have to be very careful because there's a Karthus right here, man.
Gilius is there, puts down the wall of pain. Limit's going to get the double knock-up. Gilius exhausted straight away. Dan able to escape. Torre taking the shots from Neon, but with the curtains opening, Patrik's going to block this Moonlight Vigil used by himself, the Infernum. Not quite enough damage yet on that Aphelios, and you're going can hold it as long as you like, Neon. That note is not going to find its mark.
Yeah, it looked like Limit punted Dan the wrong way, but it's because Dan flashed right before that went through, so was, of course, trying to get him back towards Schalke's side of the lane. Dan is able to escape, and that's a lot of ultis blown. Still, Gilius and Abbedagge hold on to there, so not the end of the world for Schalke after a play like that. Still got a heal off Patrik and exhaust off Tori, as well as that flash on Dan, and that's leading straight in to a potential Cloud Soul fight. Now, Cloud Soul, one of those that you love to have on something like the Karthus. Super high cooldown on that ultimate, especially early on. So 10% ability haste, anything like that is obviously going to be very, very effective.
Interesting to see Excel funneling these plates into Czekolad, not into Patrik himself. Czekolad has a slight CS lead, has built up that Seekers already, so a little bit of extra armor into the Nocturne, but you can see Vedi was right. Abbedagge's already got his Stride Breaker in his back pocket. And Excel maybe just trying to find some gold where they can right now as they work their way down towards the first dragon of the game for them. It is a Cloud coming up, as you said, Ender.
Difference here is BrokenBlade doesn't have his Cannon Barrage to participate. He's also actually a level down, surprisingly, towards Kryze. Should be leveling up relatively soon, but...
I think that might be from the Rift Herald swap. I think BrokenBlade was a little bit slow to get down towards that bottom lane.
Good call out on that. So unclear if he actually wants to use his TP to get involved in the play, because you'll see Kryze, the play on Sion, if you're in a point in the matchup where you can actually get priority over lane, is always push out the wave, then start walking down, threatening that charge on through the river. BrokenBlade was considering going for reset himself, but it looks like Schalke just going to slow things down, allow this Cloud Drake to go to the hands of Schalke. They don't need to overforce, given their situation on the map. Again, Schalke's advantages come these fights is almost always going to be cheating tempo by having these globals and surprising Excel with a numbers advantage. When you actually look at their team fight, their front line leaves some to be desired here. They have a very powerful, potent back line, but it really is, you know, sort of like a Nocturne and an Alistar charging in the front. And, well, there's some pretty beefy dudes from Excel, too, that do your job just a little bit better with that Sion and Mundo.
Haven't really seen Dan on the map that much so far. It's hard to gank as a Mundo. You're trying to just keep up on farm with Gilius, but falling behind a little bit, losing his blue buff here. Czekolad had to base, so he weren't in a position to get that mid lane priority, which you really need if you are going to control your own jungle. Actually, for Schalke, having these more open avenues into the jungle because of the Infernal Rift makes it a lot easier for them. Makes it harder for Excel because they have... You can't funnel people in against an Aphelios if there's less of a funnel, you know? And like when you have so much zone control, a larger zone is usually better for you.
Definitely true. I would say that for Schalke, I'm actually curious to see who ends up paying the tax of building Grievous Wounds, because it's not a great game for Grievous Wounds. I think Patrick's going to go the lifesteal. Of course, we'll get a lot from his red gun later on too, and you're going to need something for Dan when the time comes. It looks like Leandri's Anguish completed there for Gilius now, has his mythic item, Stride Breaker, Gale Force. All these first items really have come through now for Schalke, whereas Excel have absolutely nothing. And if we can actually flip over the gold, we might get a better idea of if they have enough money in the bank to go back, but it doesn't look like that. So now will Excel see this window of opportunity on the map? It doesn't look like Excel are giving them any sort of play. Unless they decide to start the Rift Herald, which would be a bold maneuver from them.
Well, we saw Torre playing the pocket Thresh just a while ago. He should really be doing this here once again instead of being
really bad
in
for
the
Excel.
pit, as you say. Gilius already got the Leandri's Anguish. Here comes Kryze. They're looking for Gilius. The hook only lands onto Limit. He pops the Unbreakable Wind. Curtain's Call on the top side of the fight as Kryze is already down to half HP. That Rift Herald still doing work here for Schalke. And the Stride Breaker in allows BrokenBlade to kill off Kryze. And I'm really not sure why Excel have decided once again to push forward for this fight. Just back away. You don't need to fight for this.
Just press tab. There's not much more thought that needs to go into it than that. Of course, Excel probably thinking, hey, Gilius doesn't have a flash. We can finish him off. But even if you kill the Karthus, that's a winning fight for Schalke. He loves to be dead in the middle of 5 people there. So once the fight gets split up, due to the darkness as well, you'll notice that Kryze was so deep into enemy backlines. And as soon as the paranoia was popped, Excel are like, oh, God, where do I go now? Let's run away, you know? And really did cause a lot of havoc in the XL comms there, so effectively a very easy Rift Herald pickup for the side of Schalke, who were split at the start, right? Their AD carries on the top side of the map, but that's the benefit of having the Jhin. He can still try to influence from a mile away, and again, the charge is onto Gilius. He has no flash, but Limit tanks the hook. That's beautiful, and the darkness completely separates what XL is trying to accomplish in the fight.
There's not really much Kryze can do after you go in on the Sion. There's no stopping you. It's the gold lead for Schalke, working their way towards playoffs once again. Still no completed item on Czekolad, still nothing on Patrik, still nothing on Kryze.
And that's almost the biggest disaster of this fight, is because they didn't just get, a minute and a half to stay on the map, farm up enough gold to finish off those items. They actually had to take a reset after the fight, and then another reset there for Czekolad. So a lot of wasted time effectively, where you could be on the map taking minions and whatnot, that Schalke got free reign to continue to push out their lanes. And this mid turret should end up falling because Czekolad had to take that bonus reset. Abbedagge just needs a couple of whacks on the mid lane turret. Herald will do the rest.
So we're going in, putting the box down. Abbedagge is going to use the Soul Shroud. Here comes the unstoppable onslaught. Abbedagge flashes away. The tower goes down to the Rift Herald. And in the end, Excel really only able to get the flash there out of Abbedagge.
Important summoner spell to get. That's a trade you're willing to make there if you are Excel. Is traded off for minions on the top side of the map, so we'll see if the flash does end up being important later on, because Schalke again are eyeing yet another turret from Excel, and Excel have effectively had priority in no lanes for the last 3 minutes, it seemed like. So Schalke just continuing to fire away, pick up these turrets. Even Gilius runs around mid lane to find 1 or 2 minions before he's pushed off of the way by Neon. Neon's like, what are you doing, man? Gilius like, I'm Karthus, I'm a real jungler, I'm a real champion. Give me your minions, please.
We do see Patrik deciding that he's had enough of being dived the entire time. Immortal Shieldbow is the pick here on the Aphelios. As you said, expect some Grievous Wounds sometime out of Schalke here. An Executioner's Calling here, an Oblivion Orb there, just to get that little bit of extra damage on the AD carry. With the Infernal Dragon coming up in 8 seconds. You can see Excel already starting to set up around it. There's a TP for Kryze if he wants to join this. Dan, there's quite a lot of damage there to limit with the Infected Cleaver. Abbedagge has a flank position. There's a ward. Paranoia, Cannibal.
We're flying!
The Requiem, Praetor, whatever gods you do, Excel, because immediately they are just deleted off the map. Gilius sings a song and their souls are sent to Valhalla. Dan killed off in the end. It's triples for Schalke. And in the end, Excel can do nothing in that fight.
That combination is just disgusting. Oh my, we're like, they had no setup whatsoever other than that Kryze was not there to tank in the front line. They saw Patrik, they killed Patrik, and now they have this big beefy raid boss left in their sights.
I mean, in the end, they're getting the dragon while this happens. They're looking to kill off Kryze, maybe have his death timer at a different position to the rest of Excel. Kryze goes down. Schalke currently 6-0, 4,000 gold ahead.
I cannot understate how genius this draft plan, this strategy was from Schalke. They have beaten Excel in the scaling department, and by having all of these globals, you target the one player on Excel that is consistently carried throughout the season, Patrik. Everything is sent onto the Excel AD carry, and if he is dead, Excel have absolutely no team fight. Completely useless up against the champions that Schalke are going to be running. So Excel, they came into this match as a do-or-die match for both teams, and Schalke have just outthought Excel from the get-go.
You can see that Patrik didn't really have a chance to move, never mind a chance to output DPS in that fight. The Cannon Barrage helping BrokenBlade pad his numbers. And it's just so difficult for Excel to do anything because, as you say, Schalke have outthought them. Schalke have outdrafted them here. And with them being just outside of the playoff picture right now, it becomes so much more difficult for Excel. They have to win this game if they're going to make it.
I mean, you're also seeing like really big issues there in terms of like the peel tools ready for Patrik. They got the first pick Thresh, that's great. But Mundo does nothing. Completely useless. A Sion, not very reliable instantaneous CC, so Abbedagge really just needs to use his spell shield for a hook, and then he has free reign on the backline, doing very good things for Schalke. Now Kryze, what's he trying to do here up against BrokenBlade? I don't know if he wins this one. There's 2 items to 1.
Dan is on his way. Dan is on his way, and Kryze has the Frostfire Gauntlet for the slows. Dan working his way down here as well with the Sadism popped for the extra movement speed. Kryze flashing forward, BrokenBlade pops the Cannon Barrage down. BrokenBlade, you have to feel, will be sacrificed here. Excel find a pick and their first kill of this playoff match in the bottom lane.
Excel, I hope that Excel had vision or knew that Gilius was recalling, because the Baron is dead if they did not know that Gilius was in base. Gilius, unfortunately, right at the same time the fight started off, had completed a reset, so he didn't have any option to go onto that Baron and instantly take it, because, make no mistake, Schalke can actually cut through this Baron relatively quickly with Gilius's Karthus. That champion's so insane. and taking those objectives. And you look at the top river, just Control Ward Kingdom for Schalke. That should be cleared out here now, but Schalke, if they can maintain this vision denial on the river, always have that looming threat of the Baron sneak, and they only need 2 or 3 players to make that a reality.
Alongside that, the bounty, the shutdown went to Kryze. Like, that's all well and good. He's got a Randuin's now, but Kryze can't really stop a Requiem, a Paranoia, a Cannon Barrage. Like, you want that extra gold on Patrik so he can get towards his second item at the moment. Only sitting on the Immortal Shield Bow. Look at Neon. Neon hasn't been a key point for Schalke in this game, but he's already got the Lord Dominic's complete. He's got the Gale Force complete. He's in a really good spot. We now see Abbedagge getting the Sterak's, which is where Vedi said Nocturne, when he gets these 2 items, is so powerful, is so strong.
Well, that's scary because he's looked very strong and powerful for the last 22 minutes, Medic. Diving in onto Patrik, and you know, Patrik, he's obviously trying to figure out ways to stay alive with the shield bow and whatnot, but these abilities are only going to start doing more and more damage from Schalke. We're less than 2 minutes away from an Infernal Drake spawning. And Schalke have a lot of different options in the way that they can play this out, because they can, like they are right now, continue to dominate vision control on the top side of the map and always have the threat of the Baron like we mentioned, and play for any sort of pick. Because if they have this deep vision, they have the vision for Nocturne ult to go flying in. And you just need to be, like, within 2 or 3 screens of someone. If you are Schalke, you see them isolated, and then you have all those globals to fly in. So it really is about hitting this super deep penetrating vision inside the XL jungle, because it opens up for the immediate assassination, unless Czekolad is pathing back all the way through his own base towards that Drake.
It's become so much harder for XL. Their own jungle is not safe. We saw Dan and Kryze trying to shadow each other for a little while, hoping that BrokenBlade perhaps overextended. Without that flash, maybe they could have found another pick. And across the course of the weekend, Kryze and Dan teaming up has been a way that XL have made games work. Remember how many times Wonder died on the Jace? Like, they've done a really good job, but it's not as easy when the enemy respects the fact that you might be there, and BrokenBlade backed away as soon as he had any inkling of the XL lineup. 30 seconds on that Dragon. Only the third of the game for Schalke, so XL can give it up without losing that Infernal Soul, but the extra AD, the extra AP that Infernal Drake gives to a Karthus, to a Nocturne, to a Gangplank makes it so much harder for the next fight.
Yeah, and all Abbedagge wants to do is pin someone up in this top lane. That's why he's shoving out that wave, trying to get someone to respond to it, because now he can reset, get back to the rest of the team. Now, usually in a team comp, someone like an Alistar is looking for a flank maneuver, get onto the enemy backline. That is not Limit's role in this fight.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Limit's looking for the flank. TP.
Watch Patrik.
Into the dark. No! That's Patrik. Pops a stopwatch. Maybe he's been able to delay this enough. I didn't see if the Requiem's gone off. Now it comes out and Limit still takes the kill. And Schalke delayed it. They set up the bait for the stopwatch with the Paranoia, and then they waited for the Requiem. Beautiful play from Schalke 04.
And forget the Drake. Schalke are going straight for the Baron, getting the Scuttle Crab before this one goes down. Now, they used every single ultimate, barring that Alistar ulti, ready to go on this Baron, but the Baron goes down oh so quickly, and XL have no way to get into the pit.
What are you going to do? Run at them, Dan? Right now, the Baron is down to 5,000. XL decide, well, we might give up the Baron, but we're not going to give up the soul for now. Infernal Dragon should be taken by them, as Schalke with a 5,000 gold lead are stepping ever closer to their playoffs berth.
The winner of this game is guaranteed playoffs. The loser is out. And for Excel, this organization has never made playoffs in the history of the LEC. Every single split, it's felt like they've got closer and closer and closer. And this year it has come down to the final game. But Patrik, their carry for the entire season and also all of 2020 has been targeted by Schalke. The man is unable to play the game with everything Schalke have sent his way.
Did you see that? Abbedagge put the tethers on Patrik. He pops the stopwatch. As he comes out, he's feared back into Schalke. That is actually unreal.
Yeah.
That's actually unreal how that works.
There's just no counterplay. What can he do? He needs Cleanse, QSS, Mikhail's, Barrier Heal, Exhaust,
I don't want to say it, but maybe Betty's right. Maybe Nocturne mid is good.
Nocturne mid is certainly
seems to be
good,
working.
And when you put it with this composition, again, like, Schalke could have been sitting on this, you know, for a few weeks and been like, this is really good. Or they could have been like, no, this is the comp we want against Excel in particular. And I subscribe to that belief that Schalke came in with this exact plan to dismantle Excel, and Excel have looked hopeless in this game thus far.
We have even more dive threat as Limit has finished the Turbo Chem Tank Baron buff on Schalke for the next minute and a half. BrokenBlade is not even with his team. He's got that Cannon Barrage. That's all he needs to join a fight. Excel, where do you go? What are your options? What are your choices? You got to do something, it feels, otherwise you're just going to keep bleeding out. You're going to keep going to lose these fights.
All of Excel's tanks have just decided to build as much armor as they possibly can, and with good reason, but there's still a Karthus you have to deal with, and that's not the guy you want to target at the start of the fight. Excel are trying to rack their brains, figure out a way to fight. But the way to fight for them is not forward. The way to fight for them is to figure out a scenario in which Patrik survives. They're going to have to think about that long and hard because they are not going to have pressure on this map for such a long time.
Okay, so with Baron buff still only a minute on, you can see BrokenBlade and Kryze trying to work onto... Sorry, Dan and Kryze trying to work onto BrokenBlade once again. There's no real waves here yet for Schalke. Abbedagge is escorted in this bottom wave, but Czekolad can clear that quickly. Now the mid wave comes in. Patrick's just reset. Neon a 2-level advantage on the AD carry right now. Neon is alone though, and here comes Dan. Say doesn't pop. Torre has not got a flash, and Neon just walks away.
It does nothing. Now it's an ulti blown here. Schalke will knock out the inner turret. The entire time that Schalke have been pressing forward, they've also just been raiding the entire jungle. Abbedagge goes in!
Paranoia, everyone's coming to get you as Abbedagge goes in. There's the wreck, boom! Doesn't need to be Aphelios, just snipe off the Syndra. Excel a man down now for the next 44 seconds.
Excel pressed back into their base. The jungle doesn't belong to them. The lanes don't belong to them. Their own lives. Subject to Schalke's determination to destroy them at any given time. The Baron buff has fallen off from Schalke, but they just continue to stack up, look more and more powerful in this game. And Schalke's playoffs hopes are very much alive.
Oh, they're so alive. From a miracle run last season to now getting to 5-2 at the midpoint of this season ender. They had won 5 of their first 7 games, and then it took them until against Fnatic to find another win. It has been a journey for Schalke. It has been a trek, to say the least. And after what was a very promising start to the season, they struggled, but now they really seem to find their spark again.
These two teams were the two teams that were discounted from the playoff conversation at the start of the weekend. We said Misfits are on a roll. Vitality have a better chance than these teams because they are on such downward spirals of loss streaks, but they both proved everyone wrong to come to this final moment. Now Schalke just need the finishing touches. You'll notice on the minimap right now, Excel putting so much pressure towards topside. A minute on Drake. They expect Schalke to be playing down bot. But you'll know that Schalke also just have a mid wave they can work with as well. This tower very, very low, and no Aphelios to clear the minions.
Czekolad just used the scout of the week not to clear out the minions himself. Gilius stepping forward. One more shot on that tower would remove it from the rift. Patrick's backed away. Kryze now 16. We are starting to see Czekolad and Patrik work their way up towards that 3rd level ultimate, but Abbedagge is 17, Gilius is 16 himself. That Karthus ult, oh baby, that's going to do a lot of damage. Lange's Anguish, Zonya's now building into his 3rd item. And alongside that, you can't discount BrokenBlade. He's got 3 items as well with a Laure Dominix. Every carry on Schalke is 3 items, and earlier on, Ender, you said they don't really have a tank line. You don't need one.
No,
you don't need one if Excel are half HP before the fight even begins.
No one's even in the fight from Schalke. Literally, it is just Abbedagge diving in there and then Limit playing disruptions that no one can get towards his backline. It's absolutely brilliant. And Excel, you know they have no vision of this river. It's not Soul. So thankfully, Excel were able to take the first Drake uncontest, were able to work their way into that 2nd Infernal Drake for themselves too. So Schalke now on point, here we go!
Paranoia once again, Patrik has the flash, has the heal, is going to be escorted by Torre out of the base. Here comes the Rec Room, the Cannon Barrage. Flash away, and Patrik survives through the Immortal Shield Bow. Patrik able to keep himself alive.
This is the window now for Excel. 17 seconds left on Baron. All the ultimates spent from Schalke. Excel, you're never going to get a better fight in this. It's a 7k gold deficit for them. The items definitely not in their favor, but if there was ever a chance for Excel, if there was ever a moment to decide this is when we pull the trigger, it is a challenge in the Baron pit within the next 60 seconds.
Got to go for it. Gilius still a quarter of his cooldown on his ultimate done. 3 quarters left. Abbedagge halfway back towards the Paranoia. He didn't burn burn his flash. He didn't burn any summoner spells to get into that fight. He's got the Randuin's back up. BrokenBlade is pushing in the bottom lane. Cannon Barrage halfway back. Tick, 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 as you say, Ender, in the clock on Excel's playoff hopes might be ticking down.
Abbedagge just 15 seconds away from having his paranoia to get into this fight. Schalke, they're not going to go down without a fight. They're split pushing Ender in the pit.
Excel on the Baron, but there's only 8,000 HP left on it. Neon's trying to do what he can. BrokenBlade might be able to finish the game before Excel can even get back on into the base. All Schalke have to do is delay the ports, delay the backs, because BrokenBlade is pushing in. They're TP going in with the paranoia. Excel, you got to get back now. You got to get out of there. Can they get the recalls off? Limit gets close enough, and he stops Kryze from backing away. Now Excel are trying to TP back. Neon has killed off Patrik. The shutdown for Czekolad. The TP in. The Baron buff won't be enough, and Schalke have made it to playoffs.
Schalke, what an unreal performance. The draft kingdom they put on display here. And it is another happy Schalke to qualify for playoffs. This time, it didn't take the miracle run, but it did take a critical victory over Excel to push them out and to send Schalke in.
It did take a miraculous draft as well from the Schalke team. As you said, Ender, every champion, every part, every item choice was designed to stop Excel from playing the way that Excel want to play. And this week we have seen both Rogue and G2 not manage to do that.
Honestly, it just puts a smile on my face when I see like a perfect plan and then perfect execution on it. It was such a surprising draft. Karthus as a third pick, running exhaust in the jungle of all things, but Schalke knew exactly the way to take apart Excel. And for Excel, their playoffs hopes have been dashed again. This team, the only team in LEC history never to qualify for playoffs, and again, just one game away from making it happen.
So close, yet so far. You guys can vote for your Kia Player of the Games at LEC on Twitter. BrokenBlade, Abbedagge, and Limit are your options. All of them are great. I know who Vedius is going to say you should vote for. Oda Womne.
I give that one to Dylan Falco. Man's a genius.
Put him on. Put him on.
9 head.
Coach of the game. We'll take an in-depth look at Schalke's win in just a few minutes as they secured their spot in the LEC playoffs.
That was my foot. Wait, I can't find the switch.
It's on your left?
Wait, I got it.
Oh god, that's not good. What did you do?
I wasn't supposed to leak that. Oh no.
No, wait, look, if we react quick enough, we can just pretend that we revealed it on purpose.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go.
Damn it, just roll with it.
And let's bring the hype music.
LEC Finals, 10th and 11th of April. Tune in.
and welcome back to the LEC Super Week. Schalke 04 will be the last team to join our teams in playoffs, as you can see with the victory moment right now. And Gilius, obvious question maybe, because we're watching the celebration, but how do you feel qualifying once again?
Oh, it's such a big relief. Like, I had so much pressure on my shoulders the last weeks because I really set this goal for myself that I will make playoffs, obviously, right? And I want to be the very best. I want to win stuff. So winning today it means so much to me. Like, honestly, like, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how to describe it, honestly.
It's still less dramatic than last year, but it remains a very Schalke 04 run for playoffs. But do you feel like you perform better under pressure?
I think so, yeah. At least for myself, I can say that when the pressure is on, when it's do or die time, I'm there to show up. I'm there to press ulti on Karthus and do nothing the whole game. But yeah, I definitely think I do well under pressure. And I'm excited for the stage to come back eventually, right? That's when every game is kind of more pressure than just playing online.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you back in the studio in a couple weeks. But I mean, showing up today, you had to face off against an Excel who was on steroids, overperforming, I want to say, for this Super Week. Were you nervous facing them? And how were you confident that you were going to beat them in the end?
I knew we were gonna win. Like, I already told myself in my head that I already won this game because the last time we scrimmed them, we 5-0'd them in a very disgusting fashion. And we just know that we match up well against them, like from lane to lane. But honestly, big respect to them that they even, holy shit, they beat G2 and Rogue. No one expected that. What the fuck?
Yeah. All credit to Excel. They had a fantastic win, and we're looking forward to seeing them in summer, obviously. But talking about you, Gilius, I remember we had an interview on my YouTube earlier this split, and you told me that everything is going to go all right. We're already past the honeymoon phase. Nothing can stop us. Can you explain what happened this split?
I actually know what happened. We are a good team. Honestly, we're over the whole spring split. We have been a good team in scrims at least. Then we faced G2, and I provoked Wonder in the lobby chat, and Wonder said we will not make playoffs, and he cursed us. And the curse was holding on for 7 games straight, 7-game losing streak, and then we broke the curse, and yeah, that's what happened.
Karma always strikes back. But I mean, focusing now on playoffs, with the results this week, with the 6 teams that we have in playoffs right now, what can you tell me about the level in the LEC this year compared to last year?
I think the level is lower overall, at least when it comes to middle of the pack to bottom teams. At least in scrims, there's such a huge difference scrimming the likes of G2, Rogue, Mad Lions compared to scrimming Excel, SK, and so on. But I definitely think our top teams are stronger than last year. It kind of feels like that, and our bottom teams are weaker. So I'm not sure about the overall level. It's hard to say. But I mean, LEC is always strong. When Worlds comes around, when MSI comes around, we're fucking good. So I'm not so worried for a region.
All right, well, now focusing on playoffs, we only have the 6 best teams remaining for the split. I want to say, obviously, a lot of things are still to be decided. You can get top 4, depending on how teams are going to perform after you. But focusing on playoffs, what can you expect? Not even talking about opponents, but yeah, what are your expectations for playoffs? Best of 5s coming back, you coming back to the studio also, all these things.
Yeah, I'm excited to play at the studio for sure. And best of 5, I think, suits us really well as a team, since we have a great coaching staff, great overall like management, Mert, Nico, all these guys behind us. So it's going to be nice playing a long series. We have our backup from our team in Schalke 04, and Dylan with his draft genius ideas. And when it comes to opponents, what do you want me to talk about it or not?
You can say a few words if you want, sure.
Yeah, like G2 Rogue are definitely hard to beat, I think, in a BO5. It will take some very strong performances, some very strong outplays from us. But other than that, I think we can take down the rest. With Mad Lions, I would expect us to have a close series. But yeah, right now we just focus on being happy, being in playoffs, and then we will see what happens.
Yeah, time for celebration, Gilius. Congrats on making it to playoffs once again, and thank you for the interview. Looking forward to seeing you guys again in 2 weeks. And for more on this game and the Karthus Nocturne mid, send it over to Sjokz.
Thank you very much, Laure. Fantastic. Congratulations to Schalke, our last team going into the spring playoffs, as we get a look already at, I believe it's Mad Lions for later, is it?
Next up, yeah.
Yeah, next up. But first, of course, commiserations to Excel, as said by Gilius there as well. Fantastic job by them this week, but it wasn't enough. And for Schalke, they managed to outdraft Excel and win the game. And especially for Gilius, we had the PGL interview just a couple of weeks ago where he was really sad and he seemed a bit lost. So it's good to see that they got everything together.
Yeah, it was impressive with what they came in with today. For me, I'm going to let LS go into the specifics, but I think that this style of draft is just so good against a team like XL because of how they like to play the game. That kind of hyper carry in the bot lane, that front-to-back team fight style. Schalke's draft made it so they could specifically attack that hyper carry. It constantly had backline access. It was very difficult for XL to actually play team fights, and it felt like that the whole goal was to stop XL getting their comfort.
Yes, LS, can you shine your light on what was really a draft kingdom from the side of Schalke?
Yeah, I think I think this was a really good example of a team that identifies that one team drafts a particular way, but the process in which they draft is actually vulnerable, right, throughout the order of the draft phase. And you can get some advantages. And I think that here, even through B1 to B3 picks, Excel was already setting themselves up for failure, and Schalke just seemed like they really came in today completely aware of how they wanted to conduct this. And it was a draft kingdom, like you just said. I mean, they are even or winning pretty much across the board. And then compositionally, they just have everything that Excel can't really interact with.
Exactly, and also specifically versus the way Excel likes to play with putting everything on Patrik, you have a composition that can always isolate him and chase him down.
Yeah, in particular, I think that the Gangplank ultimate made it very hard for low mobility champions to be able to play team fights. It's really good at splitting up enemy team compositions as well, and you think, okay, well, maybe the Thresh can actually compensate for that, but then it's made even worse when the Nocturne is consistently diving onto the backline, and then you have all this added damage from the Karthus. Like, the AD carry in this composition for Schalke really doesn't need to do much because all of the damage is coming from everywhere else.
And as we go a bit of a layer deeper, LS, you wanted to talk specifically about some of the item choices on Sion and DrMundo?
Yeah, I think in this game, it was a little bit weird. Sion should already know that he's not really providing any value, and if he's already inside of the fight, then he's doing things already. I think that both of them going Frostfire Gauntlet was just really bizarre in general. No one on the enemy team really cares about if they're slowed. If they're on top of you, you're probably dying or running backwards anyway, so the slows have minimal value. Thresh ends up building Solari in this game, but I think that Sion should just concede the fact that his purpose there is to try to body block for Syndra and Aphelios, and he should actually probably just go for a utility item as well with Solari on top. And I know that probably sounds pretty outlandish, but when you think about what kind of value he's going to get from Sunfire items in this game, it's completely impossible, right? Aphelios has a really hard time with items. Syndra has a really hard time with items in this comp. Everything's just really, really hard for them all around.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was even a layer deeper than just a draft and the way the game was going. Also, the itemization. I want to pull up the replay of the first fight, and the thing that bothers me a bit here, and I don't want to like keep hammering home on Excel, but this is so telegraphed. You know this is going to happen. So how do you avoid this from happening?
Well, it's one of those situations where Nocturne is always going to look for roams, and the wave is in a bit of an awkward spot. And LS was also talking about this prior to coming into the post-match. Patrik just ever so slightly steps up, and you wanted to highlight this Hex Flash here, LS.
Yeah, so I wanted to highlight this. Jhin was given the opportunity here to actually blunder the wave, and he actually does so. From this wave state, the wave is pushing back into Excel. So from the way the minion aggro is working and the proximity to Schalke's turret, the reinforcing wave arrives first, it pushes back into Excel, which means Patrik and Tor, they don't need to actually walk up. like Sjokz just mentioned, this is telegraphed. This is the only timing where Excel can possibly die due to what Nocturne just did in mid lane. And because of the proximity to the turret, reinforcing minion wave, as well as the current minion state due to what Jhin just did, Excel should have realized it. It's very, very subtle. It's a fraction of a second, but it really matters, and it changes everything. Patrik shouldn't walk up.
Yeah, and it ends up resulting in the play going heavily in the favor of Schalke. Limit's able to find the engage, and then of course the Nocturne ultimate comes through, and the combo from Karthus as well. Like, it's just, once the ultimates are available, that bot lane is in danger. You can see after that, they immediately swapped up to top side to try and funnel more farm into Patrik, but very early on, the game plan was shutting this man down.
And you also know once that comp gets rolling from Schalke, it will be hard to stop it. I also want to put the attention on Abbedagge specifically and his Nocturne. I know that we meme a lot and we talk a lot about it, but it looked like a very strong pick. But you wanted to highlight that on top of just playing it, he actually did some micro interactions really, really well in the teamfight execution that made it even better.
So, there are certain things about Nocturne where he can be difficult to play certain times, but the thing that's most important is that you land your fear before anything else, because once the tether is attached, there are very few things that can actually break it. And you saw how he was able to land it onto the Zhonya's target so that you still end up getting feared afterwards. And also, landing your Q is more important than landing it during your ultimate, because some people think that it gives you more damage mid-flight, but it doesn't. The amount of damage that your ultimate does is determined at the moment of cast, so as long as you connect to the target and then land your Q, that is where a lot of the follow-up damage comes from as well. And it was very clear to me that Abbedagge has played the champion, he understands the champion, and that just made me very happy because he's put a lot of time and effort and he executed very well.
Yeah, let me ask LS then, because we've seen it now a couple of times across regions. What is your general impression of how strong Nocturne mid is and how much we should see it?
So I was actually really excited for it in this game because Syndra Nocturne has actually changed in between seasons. It used to be Syndra favored, but with some of the subtle changes that have happened with itemization and just Nocturne's current state, he can actually get through laning phase. And like Vedius just mentioned, he seemed very aware of how to play the matchup. Czekolad didn't seem aware. He seemed very reserved. He was just wave clearing, playing very defensive, very turtley, and he seemed very out of his comfort zone, which I think is another big credit to Schalke for doing that. And I think Nocturne, yeah, he has value, not even just in mid lane.
And you can see how effective it is in fights as well, because this is the whole premise of the comp. Nocturne acts as this bruiser that both offers damage, but also survivability. The combination of Sterax plus Stride Breaker gives you a slow, it gives you the fear, it gives you the HP, and everything you kind of need to act as that engage. And then all you really need is a comp around it that can then enable that damage. And I think that Schalke just executed well.
Abbedagge is also our Kia player of the game.
Nice.
The Nocturne mid played to perfection, 76, did this calculator, percent of the votes. Those are always tricky for me to read off, but completely deserved. And what this makes me excited for is the Schalke that we may see in playoffs. And I hope that, one, they can keep the streak going, because honestly, it wasn't too good for those 7 games in the middle. And also be willing to build these compositions against more difficult teams, because that might very well be the key for them to get across those hurdles of a G2, of a Rogue.
Yeah, well, I think we heard a very honest response from Gilius, where he said that the top 2 in Rogue and G2 are going to be difficult opponents, and in order to beat them, he's expecting that they're going to have to level up a lot, but he's confident that they can challenge the likes of Mad Lions and other teams in playoffs, and I'm excited to see what they bring, because their prep was clearly good. The question is, do they have more in the tank? Because my biggest criticism of Schalke has been that they are very predictable in their approach to the game, and it is interesting and fun to see these types of drafts, but can they keep this prep up moving into the best of 5?
That will be the question indeed. The final day of the regular season continues in just a few minutes as Astralis and Mad Lions face off in Game 3.